front page of the Daily Caller. Documents show media plotting to kill stories about Reverend Jeremiah Wright. This is, and I have to tell you, we have a source that is inside this group. And they have the documents, and they have told us that this is the tip of the iceberg on this. But they have not released the documents, nor will they release the documents, because they say that would be unethical. Really? You have somebody destroying, and nobody will let me on the phone with this individual. You have the press destroying the republic. If there is not a free press, the republic will fail. We are close. I have a friend who has been in the media for a very long time that said just last week to me, the republic is over. I'm sorry, what was that? The republic is over. Why? Because the press will not stand for it. It will not stand and tell the truth. I have never believed that the media was in a giant conspiracy until now. These documents are part of a listserv. Several hundred journalists from Journalist, plus professors and activists. And it's all documented. It's all there. I would love a millionaire to step to the plate and allow me to offer $1 million to this person to release these. $1 million reward. Release all of these words. Here is Ackerman. Who is Ackerman? He is with the Washington Independent, is he not, Stu? Explain exactly what I'm going to be reading here. This is Jeremiah Wright has been exposed. The media does nothing about it. They circle the wagons. George Stephanopoulos talks about it. Asked Barack Obama a question in one of the debates.
Yeah, and they're very upset about the idea that it was even asked. They don't think it has anything to do with the debate. They think it's a horrible thing by ABC. They're criticizing ABC for not being left enough. So they go through an exchange of basically how should we coordinate our responses here to make sure this stuff doesn't happen again. They eventually get to a point where they write a letter about it and try to, I believe it was picked up by the New York Times, a letter from journalists saying that it was a terrible debate and it shouldn't happen anymore.
Chris Hayes from The Nation posted this. He said, "Our country disappears people. It tortures people. It has blood of as many as 1 million Iraqi civilians, men, women, and children, the infirmed on its hands. You'll forgive me if I can't quite dredge up the requisite amount of outrage over Barack Obama's pastor."
Now, The Nation is a far-left publication,
No.
Not necessarily supposedly independent. They go on to talk about this is, I think, interesting as well, another colleague of Hayes at The Nation, talking about another thing we've complained about for well over a decade, the reaction from feminists about Monica Lewinsky. Her name is Katha Pollitt, and she says she couldn't disagree with Hayes, the comment you just said, on principle, though she did sound weary of the propaganda. Quote, "I hear you, but I'm really tired of defending the indefensible. The people who attacked Clinton on Monica were prissy and ridiculous, but let me tell you, it was no fun as a feminist and a woman waving aside the politically irrelevant and part of the vast waving aside as the politically irrelevant and part of the vast right-wing conspiracy, Paula, Monica, Kathleen, and Juanita." In other words, she realized at the time.
She knew, but she had to wave them off for the good of the party.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's unreal.
Now, this is, so you understand what this kind of thinking, where does this lead you? This leads you at the end of the road. Well, I don't think we should kill those people, but, okay, if it's good for the whole, it's good for the collective. If it's good, if it will save all of us. We have the same people, I'll bet you, in their circles now not willing to talk about the assassination list that the president has. He is claiming now through the NSA that he can assassinate Americans. Assassinate Americans because they pose a threat to the country. This, by the way, is not my story. This is a story from the New York Times and MSNBC and Salon.com. That's murder, gang. Without a trial, without any court order, the president has issued some sort of an executive order, some sort of order through the NSA for as many as 12 Americans. We know one of them is a guy in Yemen, an American citizen who's over in Yemen. Be very careful, because it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, well, that guy in Yemen, is it? Is it? Is it really? He's not on the front lines. He's not in the battle. You can charge him. You can arrest him. You can have a court. You can set him up for court, but kill him? No, if he's shooting at you, yes, you can kill him. You cannot have the president of the United States executing people through the NSA. Just, yeah, Mr. President, who would you like to assassinate today? That's called murder. But how come you haven't heard anybody talk about that? That's a little bigger than Reverend Wright, isn't it? Can you imagine any president at any time? Okay. So Ackerman, Spencer Ackerman of the Washington Independent, he says, part of me doesn't like this either, that they're going to just brush aside Reverend Wright. But what I like less is being governed by racists, warmongers, and criminals. So in other words, the press is going to decide for you which one is better. The racist that they like of Jeremiah Wright, and Barack Obama, I guess, is in that category if you're just dismissing him. He's sitting there, and they're not saying that he didn't know. They're saying, well, just don't let that... No. If you're making the case that, well, he doesn't know. He didn't know. How could he possibly know? No, they're saying it's not important. And they're picking the racist of George W. Bush and saying that's the real enemy. I want to quote now from this journalist's secret blog. You want to talk about a secret conspiracy theory? I mean, this is it. You want a star chamber? This is it. He writes, quote, I do not endorse a popular front. Could you search for the words popular front? Because they're both capitalized.
Yeah, a broad coalition of political groupings, generally everybody working together. An aligned front, a unified front.
Okay. I do not endorse a popular front, nor do I think you need to. It's not necessary to jump to Wright's defense. What is necessary is to raise the cost on the right of it going after the left. In other words, find a right-winger and smash it through the plate glass window. Take a snapshot of the bleeding mess and send it out on a Christmas card to let the right know that it needs to live in a state of constant fear. Obviously, I mean this rhetorically. Oh, obviously you do. Sure you do. I think this threads the needle. If the right forces us all to either defend Wright or tear him down, no matter what we choose, we lose the game they've put upon us. Instead, take one of them, Fred Barnes, Karl Roves, who cares, and call them racists. Ask, why do they have such a deep-seated problem with a black politician who unites the country? What lurks behind those problems? This makes them sputter with rage, in which in turn leads to overreaction and self-destruction. Can I tell you something? The only people, there's a handful of people in Washington that I think are actually part of this. I don't even know how many, but I think there's a handful. But I think the ones that need to meet a courtroom are those in so-called journalism. I have always said I'm not a journalist, and I wear that as a badge of honor. I mean it more than life itself. You journalists are pathetic. You journalists are the ones that will be responsible for the end of the republic. How dare you lecture the American people? How dare you decide elections for us? Who did you learn that from? Oh, I know. Walter Lippmann.